When an ancient wizard like Gadora is stabbed in the back, it isn't by a stranger. It's someone close enough to make the whole room dangerous. And as the pieces start falling into place, Yuki realizes their grand plan may have been dancing on the Emperor's palm this entire time. Before the Empire reaches Tempest, hit like, leave a comment, and subscribe if you want more of these. It helps the channel find the right fans and keeps the AI, editing, and rendering side of this project moving. Now we begin with Gadora, caught between warning an old ally and protecting Tempest. Gadora was at an impasse about two things. The first, naturally, was who might have been trying to murder him. If the assailant did not even alert me to their presence, that narrows the range of possibilities greatly. I have my thoughts on their identity, but even inside his own mind, Gadora was too afraid to say the name. If his forebodings were true, then every sinister design he had pursued and every plan Yuki and his gang had made had been playing into Emperor Ludora's hands from the beginning. No, it may just be possible. The Emperor has lived far, far longer than I have. He commands knowledge beyond any average person's perception and power to match. It would not be strange at all if he saw how events would transpire and made his move decades in advance. But if so, Gadora was far away from the Empire. If his suspicions were true though, Yuki was in danger. So now what? Should he warn him, or should he let him be? That was the problem. Yuki was hardly a stranger. Gadora had a decent enough affinity for the man. Despite that, Gadora was firmly on Rimuru's side at present. He could not afford to rock the boat right now. If he was truly concerned, he could have revealed everything to Rimuru and sought his advice. But if he disclosed all this uncertain intelligence and turned out to be wrong, Rimuru's trust in Gadora would plummet. Gadora had already betrayed the Empire once. Any further loss of confidence would threaten his position in life. The pluses and minuses left him frozen in place, unable to act. And that was not all. His second doubt made his thoughts fly in every direction. That face, that ambition. It is absolutely the same as what Emperor Ludora exhibited. But even the sight of me did not seem to faze him at all. He truly appears to know nothing, and I doubt he is a fake, but there was no way Ludora could be there. No matter which angle Gadora considered it from, there was no other answer. That person had to be someone who merely resembled Ludora. But if that person was His Highness, no, that is silly talk. Let us think about who stabbed me. I have to conclude that I know the murderer, but if my hunch is right, that kid Yuki is in trouble. I am not sure I will be able to sleep at night unless I at least give him a warning. And let us inform Sir Rimuru as well. In the end, Gadora gave friendship first priority. It might damage his reputation, but that was fine. In this nation, after all, might truly did make right. And in Gadora's eyes, survival of the fittest was exactly what he hoped for. Finally reaching this conclusion, Gadora quickly sprang into action. Through his magical call, he said, "Yuki, it's me. I would like to give you some advice. To tell the truth, before even asking what Yuki was doing, Gadora laid out his main points in a single onrush.
Whoa, this is sudden.
Gadora did not slow down. I am afraid it has to be. Think about my position, won't you? Sir Rimuru might start to foster doubts about me thanks to this, so I don't have time to debate the finer points with you. I will do what I can over here, so just keep an eye out for any nighttime assassins, all right? With that, Gadora ended his magical call with Yuki. Then, in the same motion, he walked off to report to Rimuru. In a well-oiled business, he understood how important it was to stay in touch, report what you knew, and be open to discussion. He was an expert at raising the apprentices and other people under him, and he did not scrimp on those tenets. Back in the imperial capital, Yuki looked toward the rain-streaked window and spoke first.
So the old man's okay after all, huh? And I guess he's made himself at home over at Rimuru's place even.
Yuki mulled it over with a grin. The imperial capital was facing a long rainstorm, all but blocking the view outside. Even through the rain, though, his eyes detected a suspicious figure. Based on the person's well-trained movements, it was clearly someone ordered to surveil him. The realization made Yuki smile expectantly, and he stayed where he was. Kagali, the other person in the room, spoke up first. "Do you mean Gadora?" Well, I am sure he did. Even a former demon lord like me has always found him a wily sort, the kind you had best never turn your back on. That is why our relationship was so fruitful for us.
It was. I gained my position in this nation thanks to him. And just now he gave me some of the most valuable information I could ask for.
Gadora, Yuuki was sure, would not hesitate to give him useful intel on Tempest. For example, intel on Kronoa, that sort of hero. Her fate was still unknown, but if Rimuru was alive, he must have defeated her. Still, if Rimuru had actually contained all her wild violence, there would have to be rumors about it by now. Yuuki had heard nothing. Gadora had not mentioned her either, so Yuuki could not discount the possibility that Kronoa was dead. Maybe he was worrying too much about it. He decided to move on. He needed to work out the issues Gadora brought up in his emergency report. Kagali asked, "Oh, did he? And what did he have to say?"
So apparently Masayuki is the spitting image of Emperor Ludora.
Kagali could only manage, huh? Yuuki grinned at her. If someone had told him that out of the blue, he probably would have reacted the same way.
Right? It makes no sense. I thought that wizard finally lost his marbles, but it doesn't seem like he's joking. I really don't think the Emperor transformed into Masayuki or whatever, though. I can't be 100% sure of that, but...
Yuuki recalled his encounters with Masayuki, and his smile dissolved. Looking back, Masayuki had not been summoned to this world. As he put it, I turned around, and next thing I knew I was here. He was a visitor, someone who came to this world out of sheer happenstance, or so Yuuki had thought. But I cannot fully prove that Masayuki is an otherworlder. I mean, he used magic and skills too. Yuuki stopped himself before his mind went any further down that path.
Actually, let's save Masayuki for later. Right now, we need to talk about the guys watching us.
Kagali answered, "Oh? You were piquing my interest just then. But you're right. It is a bit stifling being observed like this all the time."
Right? It'll hinder our plans, and before that, I think we're gonna have to dispose of all our preparations anyway.
Kagali's tone sharpened. What was that?
You heard me. If the old man's telling the truth, it's safe to say we're in serious danger.
If Gadora was not lying, then moving the composite division currently deployed for the Dwarven Kingdom was a bad decision. Yuuki had no idea what would happen. Even before that, he needed to step back and figure out who was friend or foe. It was a complete restart, and that was exactly how cornered Yuuki and his cohorts were. Kagali understood. Ah, then yes, now is no time to be talking about that Masayuki boy. She never doubted Yuki's words. If Yuuki saw danger ahead, there was never any refuting it.
He told me he sought an audience with the Emperor, only to have someone stab him in the back.
Kagali asked, "Someone? Not Kondo?" Then she paused and dismissed the idea herself. No, I assumed that nobody besides Kondo could kill Gadora, but I could picture some hidden talent among the more undercover single digits. Besides, Tatsuya Kondo as the culprit was all too expected. Yuuki would not be demonstrating so much surprise if it were him.
I agree with you on that, yeah. But I'm surprised for another reason. Gadora said he thinks he knows who stabbed him.
The room fell silent. Kagali took a breath and peered into Yuki's eyes. "Someone both of us know well, you're saying?" Her eyes told him the story. They said, "Tell her, or else." Yuuki gave her a half smile and a light nod.
Believe it or not, yes. Of course, Gadora could always be mistaken, but I really don't think there's a way to mistake this.
Kagali's eyes widened. "So it's someone in our circle?" Her smile had vanished.
Yes.
Yuuki nodded, and his smile only grew wider.
Our double-crosser is...
A month had passed since my cabinet meeting. Today I was back in the control center, keeping up on my imperial observations. With all our intelligence being gathered there, Benimaru and I were basically living in the place. We still went back home at night, though. For all I knew, if I left the control center unoccupied, Veldora and Ramirez might turn it into their secret hideout. I had built that retreat for myself, and I wanted it to be used. Benimaru was keeping up appearances too, so I imagined he was resting in his quarters as well. Not that I needed to worry about that sort of thing. I just did not want my top commander collapsing from exhaustion before the final battle. We had staff assigned to the control center at all times by this point, with 3 shifts running the complex 24 hours a day during wartime. I wanted to be sure nobody was overworked. Managing our health, at least, was something I wanted to be thorough with. Of course, my comrade Veldora was not a concern on that front, and neither was Ramirez. Both of them got ample rest without me having to remind them. Or really, they went out and screwed around all the time. They had been excited about the war at first, but after a month of no movement, they seemed utterly bored with it. They were selfishly back in their own research lab now, telling me to inform them if something happened. Ah well, they would just get in the way regardless, so I let them do what they wanted. Right now, the top brass in the control center were Benimaru, Soe, and me, along with my secretary Shion and Diablo. Geld was there too. I should not forget about him. I felt bad about halting his construction projects for so long. I really wanted to get this war over with fast before Frey started getting really mad. But that, of course, depended on my opponents. In war, the attacking side held the initiative. If the opponent never showed up, you could not fight even if you wanted to. The Empire's tank battalion, which I had assumed would enter the scene in around 20 days, was moving far slower than expected. In fact, they seemed to be crawling along on purpose, trying to show off their might as they advanced. My Argos magic system kept a watchful eye on them day and night, but if you had never seen a tank before, I was sure they looked like terrifying creatures. Even a real monster would be afraid of giant, horrible opponents, and the magic beasts ranked A or below in the forest had already fled far away from the advancing imperial force. So where were they? Well past their borders, that was for sure. Entering our nation without permission was fully against international law, as enacted by the Council of the West, but the Empire never did play by the rules. With things as they were, the question was how we could strategically take advantage of this. We could use it as cover to stage a surprise attack, but I really did need to try talking at least once. There would be an order from the Empire to surrender, I understood, so until we could reply, I wanted to hold off on any attack.
I know it's too slow of us, but we haven't finished our own preparations yet. I see no need to attempt to deceive them. We will decide everything in the first battle regardless.
Benimaru agreed with me, not looking particularly concerned. So, a bit relieved, I watched over our continued preparations for the anti-Empire war. Finally, all those days of waiting were about to come to a close. The Empire had stopped advancing and begun to assemble into formation. They were no fools. They had zero intention of fighting fair and square from the beginning, it would seem. Apart from the tanks, they had brought platoons of infantry into the forest as well. Vast numbers, in fact. Their total had exceeded 700,000, around 70% of the Empire's entire force. We had known about this for days now, but it was worth going over again. Out loud, I said, "Guess it's safe to assume this is the main force."
I imagine so. It appears they intend to trap the Dwarven army and their tanks are acting as decoys.
So they are trying to avoid being pincered in as they advance into our territory. They are being remarkably careful, considering the size of this force. The tank battalion seemed slow not because it was a show of force or whatever. They had a more important goal in mind, attracting our attention until they could get their main force of foot soldiers in position.
Not that we didn't see through their schemes, of course. Having control over information puts us at quite the advantage.
Benimaru said it with a smirk.
Well played, Sir Rimuru. Dancing on your palm the whole time, were they not?
Diablo, wasting no opportunity to praise me, interjected as well. I was used to it by now, so I gave him a nod and a quick yep for his effort. Figure out how Diablo's mind works, and he is actually really easy to handle.
Regarding the Imperial infantry, I think we slightly underestimated the threat they pose. Each one of the soldiers seems decently powerful enough, and we have seen nobody defect from their ranks. They are assembling at a site about 19 miles away from Rimuru, the capital. That is where they are building a command headquarters and establishing their position.
So I drew the attention of everyone else in the room as he went into further detail. Moss, it turned out, had given him some valuable intel as well. Intel that proved accurate beyond complaint. It was a nice compliment to our Argos, and it gave us a picture-perfect map of the enemy's location. I asked, if they are this close to our throats, wouldn't it seem unnatural if we did not react?
No, I wouldn't be so sure. They see themselves as the superior force here, and what's more, they are trying to keep their actions covert. Presumably, they are preparing to demand our surrender, then spring right into action.
I agree with Sir Benimaru. If I could add to his counsel, 19 miles is almost the perfect distance for the Imperial Army. Magic-based observation loses its accuracy at long range. They are safe from any Legion magic that might hinder all their forces at once. That, they believe, is how they are operating. It is hilarious to witness, but that is the best they are capable of.
Apparently my concerns were for nothing. I thought the Empire would suspect our lack of activity to be a trap. But here I was being told that the enemy absolutely believed we were not onto them. The only remaining concern was the strength of this enemy infantry. So Soai, how strong are these foot soldiers? Soai had brought up their threat level, so they had to pack a punch. Depending on his response, I figured we might have to rework our plans.
If I could give a broad evaluation using the traditional human ranking system, they rank the equivalent of a B. There are many advanced troops who rank over A among them, and even the lesser troops wouldn't rank below C+. Even compared to the Knight Corps of the Western nations, I would call them quite a superior force.
Yes, that was more power than I expected. But in this world, wars were all quality over quantity. A bunch of B rankers was nothing to trifle with, but a single A rank would be far more dangerous. Of course, I did not want to underestimate their abilities as a fighting force. So there are practically no emergency recruits among them. They are all career soldiers?
Right. From their training to the quality of their gear and tactics, they appear to outclass the Western nations' knights. Even your Hellflare would have difficulty piercing their magical defense.
The way Soe put it, the Imperial Army had Legion magic cast over them at all times. They were a truly impressive force, trained to the hilt, and a platoon of them would be the equivalent of an A in rank. A force that truly worked as a team such as Gobta's could be a menace. It was not just the sum of each member's skill. It was more like exponential growth. If 20 or so of them deserved an A, simple arithmetic meant we had to fight against 35,000 A-ranked threats. Frankly, we could not let our guards down. They were a pretty dangerous foe.
We'll be fine. That's what the dungeon is for.
Force them to scatter inside the dungeon, and it will be easy to destroy the enemy before they unleash their force.
Not really, no. It just meant fending them off inside the dungeon turned out to be the best strategy of all. But depending on the enemy's war power... Wait, hang on, something dawned on me. No matter how much power the enemy brought with them, this interception strategy was valid either way. Inside the dungeon, it was possible to disperse their forces as we concentrated ours. That was why, if you really wanted to conquer the dungeon, you had to do it with small teams of elites, or you had no chance. Raphael strikes again, I thought. Out loud, I could not help blurting. You know, looking back, I am really glad we have Ramirez here.
We'll keep our city from being damaged, and it will be a breeze to maintain our advantage. As a military commander, she is the last person I would want as my enemy.
Benimaru could give frank praise like this precisely because Ramirez was not around to hear him. If he complimented her in person, she would be sneering and bragging to him all day. Regardless, I moved on. So it sounds like we have no problems, but how is Gobta's force doing? My magic was currently powering a set of large screens in the control center, displaying scenes from multiple points. One shot depicted the area near the Dwarven Kingdom. 2,000 tanks were there, all in neat formation. They too were located around 19 miles away from the central entrance, the closest access to Dwargon's capital, exactly where we predicted they would be. My main concern was the capabilities of these tanks. Their turrets were pointed straight at the large main gate, one I had visited many times by now. These so-called Magi tanks or whatever were supposed to be stronger than the tanks I knew from Earth. Perhaps those cannons had more range than the ones from my old world. I sincerely doubted their fire could actually reach the gate, but... In the public square on the other side of the gate, Gobta's and Gabiru's forces were on standby. Both were leading their respective troops, diligently performing their duties. There were no unexpected skirmishes along the way, and the residents of the inn-town were already fully evacuated. Now, as planned, Gobta's and Gabiru's soldiers had rendezvoused here to serve as Dwarven Kingdom reinforcement.
The Dwarven Kingdom has accepted Gobta's and Gabiru's forces. This will be a united front, so they have not given up their command.
I was not worried about that, since Gazel already gave us his permission. But it looked like the Dwarven army kept its promises. Sounds like there is no problem then.
I have my concerns about how well they will mesh with the Dwarven force, but if the Tempestians attack, and the Dwarves focus strictly on defense, I imagine things will turn out well.
A military situation like this ran the risk of a jumbled, confused chain of command. Being a joint effort between armies of differing nations, they would have to decide whose orders took first priority. If Benimaru was there, he could use his born leader unique skill to force his command on them all. Even in a battlefield where allies and enemies were mixed together, with that they would never have to worry about accidental friendly fire. With the dwarves on the scene, however, things could potentially end in chaos. Therefore, strictly dividing responsibilities between offense and defense would actually make things more efficient. Maybe I had better talk things over with Gazel one more time, just in case.
Indeed, with the Empire deploying, there is little time left before the start of hostilities. It is about time for us to deploy as well, so would you like to contact him to make your final confirmations?
Benimaru seemed to agree with me. So, without hesitation, I reached out for our newly installed contact terminal. This contact terminal was a magical telepathic device that Vester had invented. The great thing about it was that it could convey not only voice but visual information as well. It was shaped like a desktop computer, complete with a monitor, mouse, and keyboard. Well, not a mouse, more like a palm-sized crystal ball. The terminal activated when you touched that ball. After that, just point out the person to contact among the figures etched into the keyboard and you were connected. We kept it to a simple design so anybody could use it, although it did have its flaws. I said it conveyed visual information, but these were more like thoughts reconstructed in your brain. In other words, when you were jacked into your contact terminal, anything you thought could be picked up by the other side. This was the same fundamental concept as thought communication. I was used to it enough that I could shut out extraneous thoughts, but newbies might wind up unintentionally leaking intel. Any wicked ideas you came up with could come through loud and clear to your partner. And forget hiding any secret intentions. I definitely would not use this terminal to go cruising for dates. The average, untrained person was better off using the device's audio functions only. But hey, they would address that in version 2. I touched the crystal ball and started with the obvious. Hello? This is Rimuru. Is King Gazel there? I began with hello in this world too, as if that was the only logical option. It was too much of a habit to drop by now, so I did not hesitate. Thanks to that, much to my bemusement, it had already become established contact terminal etiquette. The dwarf operator answered. Hello. I will call for His Highness. Would you mind waiting a few moments in the meantime? All right. I could hear panicked activity on the other end. I was sure they had someone trained in handling the terminal, but hearing my name must have unnerved the person a bit. If the CEO of my old company called my desk phone out of nowhere, I would probably be freaking out too. Maybe I should have been a little more considerate.
How rude to keep Sir Rimuru himself waiting.
Xian was fuming about it already. If that was what she thought, maybe I should have had her make the call. It did kind of fall under the job description of a secretary, did it not? But Xian never touched the contact terminal, and the reason was simple. She did not know how to use it. Or maybe not that exactly. I kept teaching her how it worked, but her thoughts were apparently too strong for the device to handle. Ever since she blew out one terminal, she had been kind of reluctant to try again. So really, she had no right to complain.
Personally, instead of relying on some gadget like this, I would use spatial transport to meet the man himself. In fact, I could bring King Gazel here, but what do you think?
Diablo was being his usual Diablo-ish bossy self, but I was not too concerned. The king had his own business, no doubt, so it would be more polite to set up an appointment first. It was my fault this time for calling him out of nowhere. It was natural that I would have to wait a bit, and unreasonable to get angry at all.
Well, if Sir Rimuru called for me without warning, it would be difficult not to panic. I sympathize with the dwarf over there.
Hearing Geld say that, I silently wish some of that common sense would rub off on Xian and Diablo. In not even 3 minutes, I heard from Gazel.
Sorry for the wait. I was just thinking I should contact you before long.
Gazel's voice boomed from the speaker adjacent to the monitor. There was no image. Raphael was handling all the operations for me so I could transmit whatever video I wanted. But Gazel was still getting a grip on this. He was probably sticking to audio only. Smart choice. I answered, good. I just wanted to confirm with you one more time about the way we will divide up roles in our united force.
Yes. That is important, but before that, I need to inform you of something. The eastern gate into Dwargon is being blockaded by the Empire's force.
Just as Gadora had warned. That was probably the force led by Yuki. Yes, we have it on screen here. I will send it to you. I pointed the Argos system toward Imperial lands. It was a long distance, with a magical barrier in the way as well, so the image was not exactly clear. But we could still see a crowd blocking the highway leading to the eastern gate.
It's just like you told us, isn't it? When I heard about the enemy defector, I suspected it was a trap, but perhaps we can trust that man a little.
I kept my own caution audible. Oh, I don't know yet. There's no doubt that Gadora has given up on the Empire, but I am not sure I would trust him right now. There is every chance he is being used without being aware of it, too. I would keep a watchful eye on him.
Tell me how you really feel, then. I am quite glad to hear that from you.
Gazel flashed me a joyful smile. I guess he was testing to see if I was on my guard. He never stopped playing the old training partner card with me.
Now, Rimuru, the envoy I sent to the Empire is just being given the runaround by them, it seems. By our laws, Dwargon can launch the first attack only as a last resort. That is a disadvantage for us, but we dwarves pride ourselves on it, and so we must wait for the Empire to act. You don't need to join us in that credo, but what are your plans exactly?
Gazel's smile rapidly dissolved, replaced with a look of concern. How should I interpret his intentions here? I turned my eyes to Benimaru. He returned my gaze with an easy smile. We did not even need to exchange words, so tuned in were we to each other. I exhaled, straightened up, and turned back toward the monitor. Watching the totally blank screen, I tried to sound as formal as possible. The Imperial forces have invaded our territory without warning or permission. We cannot shut our eyes to this, and we are considering strong measures in response, including military options. Along those lines, as part of our alliance, I wanted to confirm your compliance with these measures. That sort of thing. Benimaru seemed satisfied with it. Shion happily nodded. Geld was virtually quaking with excitement, and Diablo was giddily taking down notes about something or other. I had no idea what he was writing or what he was going to do with those notes, but I was sure it was nothing good. Resolving to seize them afterward, I waited for Gazel's response.
You are starting to sound more like a king every day. Excellent. You invited them so deep into your territory because you intended to intercept them here from the start, didn't you?
Of course. We could have fought them at the border, considering the potential damage to our town. But if we do that, they might try framing it as self-defense against a monster invasion or something later on. If they are in our lands, that stops them from claiming that, and it instills a sense of danger in the Western nations too. We have already evacuated our citizens, and by this point we have just cause to strike.
I like your force of personality, but I have to take points off for revealing all that.
Gazel laughed at me. He was the one who had prodded me about it, and this was how he thanked me? But he was not done yet.
Be that as it may, I don't want anything slogging us down. With our militaries in particular, we cannot afford to have any discord, so let me spell it out for you. I am going to leave our negotiations with the Empire to the Jura Tempest Federation. If after that you decide open warfare is the option to take, then let the armed nation of Dwargon act on their alliance with Tempest and join the fray. And to avoid command chain confusion during the war, we in Dwargon will focus strictly on defending our lands. Is that all right with you?
Ooh, that was a clearer answer than I expected. I thought that since the Dwarven Kingdom had a position of absolute neutrality, they would not dare to interfere unless the Empire was invading their territory. Benimaru and I had anticipated that as well, so I accepted the proposal without particular alarm. Thank you. I feel a lot better hearing that.
Don't be silly. You must have expected this to happen from the beginning. It is the safest tactic, to be sure, but if our alliance forces ever run into trouble, at least we are justified to take action now. If you ever need us, feel free to tap our resources.
Ah, how reliable of him. I had the backing of Dwargon, a nation undefeated for a millennium, and just having a place to run to in the event of defeat was enough to give me peace of mind in this fight. All right, we will send off our envoy as planned.
We will need to divide our forces between Central and the East in order to protect them. It is in our own interest to keep our army on the defensive too, and be careful. This new tank weapon is a complete question mark on the battlefield. Even looking at the Empire's equipment, something tells me that the age of the sword may be coming to an end. Forgive me for putting you in such a dangerous role.
Gazel added that out of concern. No, I sure could not tell him to rest easy. As he said, we did not know how these magic tanks performed, so I decided to give him a warning, even though I did not think it was necessary. Based on my own knowledge, I am aware of a weapon called a tank from my own world as well. They use controlled explosions of gunpowder to send metal shells flying through the air. It is a simple principle, although the mechanism it runs on is a lot more complex. With their power, range, and accuracy, they are incredible weapons, I think. If these Empire-made magic tanks run on a similar setup, there is a chance that current tactics cannot handle them. Gazel was right, the age of the sword would soon be over, and it was likely to bring about an even more violent battlefield. What would happen if you used magic instead of gunpowder to send shells flying? I had Raphael simulate that for me, and the results were terrifying. It turned out that depending on the spell invoked, you could create a magical artillery shell, a Maggie shell maybe, that was overwhelmingly more powerful than what a tank, the epitome of modern earthly science, could launch. And we were talking about a massive weapon too.
Are you telling me that magic defenses won't work?
Exactly. You would need a full magic barrier to fend it off. And given the power involved, you would need to redouble your defense with things like trenches and earthen walls.
I knew it. I suppose all of us think the same way. We too have been working on a magic armor soldier project to prepare us for the new era. They might have beaten us to the punch, but it's not like we have any right to complain, eh? So can we beat them? Or what?
A tough question to answer. All I could give him was this. It's not a matter of can we or can't we, really. We are just going to. That's all I can tell you. The words seemed to satisfy Gazel just as much as my friends in the room.
Well, ain't that reassuring? Best of luck out there.
We're on it. That was how I ended my exchange with Gazel. As final confirmations went, I thought it was pretty good.
That's all the confirmation you need, right?
Benimaru asked the question after the call ended.
It will suffice. We have a pledge from him that we can do whatever we like.
I nodded my agreement. The time had come. Now that we had reached this point, we did not have to wait for the Empire to make a move. We were all ready to go here, so why not kick things off officially? Justice was on our side. The Imperial forces had invaded deep into the forest of Jura. That was Demon Lord territory, and there was no sugarcoating it. Now we needed to negotiate things so we would look like we were panicked and definitely not aware of every single thing they were up to. So who should I order to handle it? Gobta and Gabiru were not exactly proper diplomats, and more importantly, they were not very good negotiators. Especially Gabiru. Looking back to our first encounter, I was never going to send him on envoy work, so I decided to order Testarossa out. With her at least, I knew she would not get killed if the Empire decided to shoot first and ask questions later. Maybe it was all a farce, but we did need to offer a promise. I think it is just fine to launch a preemptive attack without saying anything, but when you are a Demon Lord, the way you act kind of matters. So I sent off a thought communication to make the order. As Rimuru and Gazel were talking on their contact terminals, Gobta's 1st Army Corps, with around 12,000 soldiers, and Gabiru's 3rd Corps, with around 3,000, had gathered behind the Grand Gate into the Dwarven Kingdom, approximately 15,000 in all. They had not entered the cave itself. They were camped in a large open square at the outer edge. The evacuation of everyone in the in-town was successfully completed, and now they were waiting for the Empire's next move. No messenger had come from the Empire yet. No surrender order had been ferried to them, but everyone gathered there could sense that the war was about to begin. The Dwarven army was also hurriedly preparing for combat. The Royal Order of Dwarves consisted of 7 divisions, and 2 of them, the Engineering Division and the Magic Support Division, were busily reinforcing the main gate and erecting a temporary barrier. An earthen wall built up with earth magic could have a fire spell applied to it to instantly make it stouter than a brick equivalent. Enhance it even further and you had a virtual barrier of iron. Thus, in a very fluid process, a tri-layer defense wall was built outside the main gate. As work continued on it, the Royal Order's Heavy Strike Division sprang into action. The officers and soldiers were covered head to toe in magical gear, but despite that, they all nimbly lined up in formation. Some sort of event must have taken place, but Gobta and his army did not pay it much mind. As the dwarves busied themselves, the 1st and 3rd Corps were all relaxing in their own ways. Gobta and Gabiru were sitting on the ground having a friendly meal together. Next to them, for some reason, there was a table setting complete with an extravagant parasol. Sitting on its white chairs were Testarossa and Ultima, who appeared to be enjoying a little tea party. They were being served by Veyron, looking every part like a staffer at a tropical resort. Despite his advanced age, his back was fully straight in an amazing statuesque posture. Gobta took a bite and praised the meal first. Hey, you know, this is really good. It feels so manly, yeah? Great stuff.
Indeed, my goblin friend. I am just as satisfied. Such delicate flavoring, and the more you chew, the more flavor seeps out of it. Truly a delight for the taste buds.
Gobta and Gabiru were offering high praise to a meal prepared by Zonda, Ultima's underling. It was a whole roast on the bone, like a cartoon snack for a caveman, simply seasoned with salt and herbs. This was not from the army's pantry. Whatever it was, Zonda had gone out and hunted it himself. Zonda bowed with elegant humility. As a chef, it is a tremendous honor to have 2 army generals offer me such praise. My specialty is court palace cuisine, so this kind of camp food is out of my expertise. Please forgive me if anything displeases you. With that, Zonda retreated to Ultima's side. His double-breasted chef's coat was a Shuna-crafted masterpiece, made from Helmuth silk and dyed the same shade of light purple as Zonda's hair. It certainly made him stand out from the armor and military dress around him. Even Testarossa and Ultima were sporting custom-made military uniforms. Testarossa was wearing pants, and Ultima opted for a skirt, but both were unmistakably in army gear. It was no surprise that Zonda stood out. He carried himself in an ever-so-sophisticated way, one that seemed unsuitable for the battlefield. He certainly brought a touch of class to the camp, and by now he was indispensable. He had been teaching many of the soldiers the finer points of camp cuisine, winning their hearts and stomachs, and being Ultima's direct underling gave him a lot of freedom. Ultima, being rather a free spirit herself, had a lot of authority as an advisor to Corps leader Gabiru, and she was not afraid to use it. With her bold, proud demeanor, she had no problem overriding any and all complaints from the other demons. She was practically demonic royalty already, and only a small handful of people could dare offer a complaint to her. Testarossa, however, gave her verdict first. It is not to my taste. You are not offering enough dishes either. I wish there was more variety. Ultima agreed. I think you have a point there. Going with these roasts and this basic hot pot, it is just way too skimpy. You have come to know Shuna and Mr. Yoshida by now. Hone your skills and make yourself more useful to us. Unlike the effusive Gobta and Gabiru, Testarossa and Ultima were not exactly fans. Zonda replied meekly, "I'm deeply sorry." Before the apology could settle, Gabiru spoke up.
No, Zonda, not at all. And I am sure Ultima completely approves of your skill. The problem, I imagine, lies not in the taste.
The sudden remark drew the attention of everyone around them. Testarossa looked intrigued. Ultima was peeved that someone was disagreeing with her, and Zonda was visibly shaken at the possibility that he had just upset his boss. Veyron, meanwhile, was as unaffected as always. Gobta, of course, ignored all this and asked, what do you mean by that?
Thank you for asking, Gobta. How to put it? My younger sister gripes at me all the time, you see. She keeps saying I should think about things from a more feminine perspective.
Gobta took another bite of his roast. What do you mean by that?
That's the thing, Gobta. Here we are, enjoying this meal, not worrying about whoever might be seeing us. But Testarossa and Ultima can't afford to follow our lead in that respect, no?
Now Zonda understood what Gabiru was driving at. It made sense to him. Until he obtained a physical body, food had never been a requirement for him, and so he had forgotten something quite basic. Good cuisine, after all, was about more than just taste. Gobta said, "Gee, Gabiru, that's a very good point. Not the kind of thing you normally say at all, either."
No, it is something I am working on as well, you see. Of course, it is honestly more something Sir Rimuru taught me, but...
Gabiru began to spin an anecdote from when he asked Rimuru for advice not long ago. In that memory, Gabiru had said,
Rimuru, I want to be as popular with the women as you are. What do you suggest I do?
And in that memory, I had answered, "You're asking me that? Because look, I'm still a virgin." Never mind. Gabiru, let me give you this piece of wisdom. If you want girls to like you, you gotta learn how to be delicate. Do that, and they'll naturally flock to you. That, Gabiru proudly explained, was what I had told him.
Then I remembered what Soka told me, and it dawned on me that Rimuru was just advising me not to do anything a woman wouldn't like, the most basic of things.
Everyone was impressed by Gabiru's impassioned argument. Sir Rimuru strikes again, in a way. If I had been overhearing this, I definitely would have blushed. Good thing I was not around, because nobody else was going to stop Gabiru from prattling on about me. Zonda stepped in front of Ultima, and Testarossa took a knee and said, "Lady Ultima, Lady Testarossa, please accept my apology. I promise I will do my best to meet your expectations the next time I cook for you." Testarossa watched him kneel. "Look at that. You have quite a talented servant, and meanwhile, look at mine." Ultima answered her lightly. "What are you talking about? Moss seems perfectly useful to me, and if Cian is working in your place, Testa, he must be incredibly good at paperwork, right? My servants are more about manual labor, so I envy you having someone you can assign those kinds of chores to." Testarossa conceded. "Well, Ult, maybe you're right. No point asking for what you can't have, though." Testarossa and Ultima continued talking, all but ignoring the kneeling Zonda. Their attitude might have seemed cold to Gobta and the rest, but it was actually quite the opposite. Being at the pinnacle of demons as they were, they rarely even took interest in other people, let alone praised them. Veyron and Zonda, fully aware of this, became noticeably nervous when their names came up. At the same time, they felt a sense of elation, like their souls were set aflame, basking in the recognition their masters offered them. But not everybody picked up on this. Gobta said, "Boy, it's tough being a lady, huh? Like, I guess they're asking you for that thing where you have to cut it into small bites so it's easier to eat, right? I get what Gabiru's saying, but honestly, that's too much work."
Gobta, that's the sort of thing you should never say out loud, no matter how strongly you feel about it. It is the first step, you see, to becoming a gentleman. That was what Sir Rimuru taught me.
Gobta pushed on anyway. No, I understand that, okay? But this is a battlefield. You gotta eat when you can and not ask for fancy stuff. As a corps leader, I think that's the right way to act around here. As long as I can eat, Gobta thought, what does it matter what it is? Given that they were in a soon-to-be war zone, he felt justified pointing out how selfish it was to say something like that. The fact that he had been appointed the leader of an entire army gave him a sense of responsibility. What was more, he wanted to show his soldiers that he was just a bit cooler than all of them, or so he thought. That was why he said it, and he was right. It was a perfectly valid argument, but sometimes people just will not listen to the truth. And Gobta probably should have thought about that first. Ultima smiled and said, "Gobta's a pretty funny guy. That was actually hilarious." Testarossa agreed. "You said it. I am so glad I am assigned to him." Ultima and Testarossa were all smiles. Their eyes, on the other hand, were not smiling at all. Everybody but Gobta had the same thought. Oh man, these demons are serious trouble. Gobchi, one of Gobta's aides-de-camp, hurriedly stepped up to stop him. Whoa, Gobta. Commander Gobta. Let's keep it at that. I am sure our intelligence officers understand, so... Gobchi knew Gobta enough to realize that his superior officer had no ill intentions. He was just expressing his honest opinion. To Gobchi, Gobta was not wrong about a thing. But in this world, being right was not enough to guarantee survival. Some people simply did not listen to valid arguments. As a goblin who knew how to read a social situation, Gobchi knew that Testarossa and Ultima were two people you did not want to get on the wrong side of. After all, common sense dictated that someone who enjoyed a little tea time on a battlefield was unconventional, to say the least. Gobchi said to himself, Gobta, you really should not be lecturing those two. And as Gobchi predicted, Gobta was in a terrifyingly dangerous situation. Testarossa and Ultima were not angry or anything, they simply thought he was an interesting toy. But if a pair of primal demons thought of him as a toy, it meant nothing less than Gobta's life hanging in the balance. But then a miracle happened. I chose this exact second to throw Testarossa a contact terminal call. Hey, Testarossa, you got a moment to chat? Gobta's life was spared for another day. Testarossa kneeled on the spot and answered, "Not a problem at all. What can I do for you, Sir Rimuru?" Those around her immediately realized whom she was currently in contact with. It was not long before everyone else was on their knees, although I was not aware of that. I said, wait one sec. Then I sent a thought communication Gobta's and Gabiru's way. Are we connected now? Gobta answered through the link, "Yes, sir."
I am on the line as well, my lord.
They both sensed me nodding. But the next thing I said surprised them all. I've just finished a meeting with King Gazel. We decided that the Tempest forces would take the lead against the Empire. But before that, we're gonna go to the bargaining table with them. I explained that I really wanted to launch a preemptive attack, but before that, we planned to reach out and offer the Empire a chance to surrender. Then I went on to explain my arrangement with Gazel, with Testarossa and the others listening in without interrupting. Once I was done, Testarossa spoke up first. "So, Sir Rimuru, you would like me to represent you in that negotiation." The ever-perceptive Testarossa was confirming it for politeness' sake, but in her mind it was already settled business. The problem then was how to entrap the Empire. Yeah, I would. As a diplomat, I will let you keep your authorization to act with my full powers if need be. You may also consult with me anytime via thought communication, and you will still have the same status as a corps commander, so I want you to work with Gobta and Gabiru to get the job done. Testarossa answered, "As you wish." Although she and Ultima were currently deployed as observers, Testarossa was also the commander of the Western deployment. That army would not have a role to play this time, but it was still one of the largest in Tempest. In terms of rank, that put her on par with Gobta and Gabiru, so she made the perfect candidate for an emissary to the Empire. Right, great. Now I imagine you are going to be exposed to some danger in this job, but are you okay with that? I was concerned, but Testarossa had already gleefully accepted the post. Nothing wrong with that, no. I will gladly show the ignorant citizens of the Empire the full majesty of your glory. Okay, cool. I mean, I would like to avoid war if possible, but I don't think that's gonna be doable this time, so... Testarossa asked, "So we will declare the Empire our enemies and lay waste to it then?" Huh? Well, I guess, but... Testarossa did not need more than that. "Then leave this negotiation to me, Sir Rimuru. If they are foolish enough to reject your merciful ultimatum, they do not deserve to breathe for another minute. I will destroy each and every one of them." Testarossa was ready to kill. It visibly dismayed Gabiru. I would much rather not have this terrifying woman in my life, he thought. Gobta, on the other hand, was still running on Gobta time. Gobta declared through thought communication, "I don't think you have anything to worry about, Sir Rimuru. Testarossa's just talking a big game because she's excited for her first trip to the battlefield. I'll be supporting her every step of the way, so we're rock solid over here." It was a bold declaration for someone as socially oblivious as him. I blurted back, "Wait, you'll join her?" Gobta sounded proud of himself. "Of course, I'm commanding an army. I got a responsibility to uphold, and part of that job is to keep our more vulnerable women protected." Gobta stuck his chest out proudly at the stunned version of me he imagined through the link. Even Testarossa had to chuckle a bit. Testarossa's thought was blunt. This goblin, he's a fool, but I can't hate him for it. Being misunderstood to this extent even made Testarossa want to laugh it off. The fact that Gobta totally failed to notice that she was not even trying to hide her brutality. He was a real my way or the highway guy, she had to admit. After a moment, I gave in. "All right, then I'll send Ranga over as well, so both he and you can be Testarossa's bodyguards. If the Empire agrees to our demands, then great. If they don't, it's gonna be war right then and there, so try not to die on me, okay?" Gobta answered cheerfully, "I'm on the job, Sir Rimuru. I got a lot of experience running from my opponents, you know." "Ah yes, you do, don't you? Then go make me proud, Gobta." With that, I shut off the thought communication. The monster armies now had their marching orders. Everyone fell quiet, collecting their thoughts. Then Gobta's command roared across the cave. All right, we're finally up. Let's get this camp cleared out and get moving. And with it, the monster army began moving as a single entity.
Route confirmed. The next episode and full playlist are ready.
Then don't stop here. Keep watching in story order and subscribe before the next part drops.